he said he had hired a woman at one point, and he had a lot of people that just didn't really want her to come out, and he was very worried for me. So when I did it, I was like, I'm doing this. I don't make enough money, and I feel like I was diagnosing things over the phone. Like, people would call, and I was like, listen, I'll bet the service tech, like, hey, it's going to be this, or it's going to be a cap, or it's going to be a contractor, and I'm like, I don't belong in the office, and I wanted to be in the field.
Hola, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Reliable HVACR podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed, like, comment. If you're listening to this over on the podcast, like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever it is, it's a bit available on all platforms. Please leave us a 5-star review to help us get out to more people. I love doing this because it is good conversations with good people. Anybody is welcome. If you guys ever want to be a guest on this show, if you guys listen or watch any of my content, go ahead and message me. Come on, tell your story. That's what it's about. If there's any sponsors that want to reach out and support the show, go ahead and also reach out to me. My email's posted everywhere. ReliableHVACR956@gmail.com is how you can get a hold of me. Speaking of sponsors, today's episode is brought to you by my favorite CRM, Jobber. If you guys want to use a software that helps us boost our business, whether it's invoicing, quoting, scheduling, keeping track of your team, price lists, our maintenance plan is in there. Now they help you with marketing and running campaigns through emails, all that stuff. And you can talk to your customer through texting in the customer hub. They can request work. You never have to pick up the phone. They can actually request work online through text. You can tell them that you're on the way. All the stuff that you would expect from a professional CRM. If you guys want a free trial and discount, go to getjobber.com/reliable HVACR. Also, VETO Pro Pack, the best tool bags in the game. I know people tell me the first thing is always the price. Let me tell you, other brands that I used to get at the supply house never lasted me. So in that short amount of time, I was buying several of those bags when I could just buy one VETO Pro Pack tool bag. And if you want to go check them out, go to vetopropack.com. You can also get them at any supply house or place that you buy equipment. They usually have VETO Pro Pack, and they just came out with the MB3 Blackout, which I am super excited for because I actually had a hand in some major design in that bag, and I hope to continue to work with that. But I use the MB3 Blackout as my favorite. I also use the Wheelers. I use a lot of their tote bags. I even have something in my van that just holds bottles and miscellaneous things, and it's made by them too. They have a bag for every scenario, so you won't be disappointed. Go check out VETO Pro Pack. And if you go to their website, go to the customer profile. You'll find me in there. You can learn a little bit more about me, and you'll probably see a lot of these YouTubers and people on Instagram that you might watch in that section. And when you're ready to level up your business, you can join BOSCH Home Comfort Pro. When you sign up, you get exclusive deals, priority technical support, and free marketing and advertising resources. By choosing BOSCH, you can represent one of the largest HVAC brands in the market with over 100 years of industry expertise. Join today at boschhomecomfort.us/HC Pro. And a big thanks to all the sponsors that make this show possible and moving forward. You'll hear more from Local HQ Marketing, NAVIEN, and DIVERSITECH throughout the show. And don't forget that I have another podcast/live stream every Thursday night, the HVAC Nights. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. It's me, Jake, and Curtis. You might know them already. And we just talk shop about our work week and life stuff. It gets crazy. It gets uncensored. It's a fun time. So come check us out live every Thursday on YouTube. And it's available on all podcast platforms later that week. If you ever want to keep up to date with anything that I use, whether it's tool recommendations, Camel City Mill socks have been really great for me, and the Huxley work pants. I have discounts for a lot of these things that I use. You can find them in my website, reliablehvacr.net. So like I said, tool link, recommendations, discounts. I got merch there. You can request stickers. I will have my arm sleeves up for sale soon, so make sure to keep an eye out there. And if you just remember to go to the website, you'll always keep up to date with everything. On this episode, we have Valerie Jimenez, also known as That AC Repair Chick over on TikTok. I believe she has a YouTube channel. I'll make sure to leave everything in the description if you guys want to go follow her and check out the content that she's putting out. She's over in Florida doing HVAC work. So she actually came from a family business to where she was in the office doing work. Then she got out in the field later on, and now she's actually teaching. So she's helping a lot of young people in trade school, and I think that's a really cool thing to do. So it's a really interesting journey and story. I'll let her tell it, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Very hectic, right? Because I was talking to you a little while ago, and you got some work to do on your house after this or throughout the day today.
Yeah, we've got some roof repairs to do, trying to save some money on our homeowners insurance. So trying.
I know how you feel. I woke up today to our water heater flooding our garage, right? So like when you said you had to run out to Home Depot, I was actually running out. That's why I told you I might need a little bit more time today.
Yeah, that's so funny that you say that, because about a year ago I did a video where we got in the middle of the night, our water heater exploded and water all over the garage, and we replaced our water heater.
Thank God it's in the garage though, because like it just stayed out there, right? It didn't come into the house, but like it started flooding a lot. And I'm like, okay, shut off the valve, shut everything off.
Your house. Okay. Yeah. Luckily, we were able to do ours. We were able to do it. So saved us a little bit of money, but it's still, like you said, it's one of those things. You got water everywhere. It's a hassle.
Well, that's the good thing about being in the trades. And I want to say that HVAC is one of the better ones to get a little bit of everything in there mixed in, where you can do plumbing, electrical, and refrigeration type stuff. So like, I don't know about you, because I know you've been in the field for a while. Like, have you worked on, or were you general area like servicing?
So I'm in Florida. I'm in Central Florida near Tampa. So we do not have boilers at all.
I'm in South Texas. I know guys from Florida. So like I always tell people that's very similar to like how it is over here, like weather wise and, heat, humidity, all the stuff that you get, we get too. And, we don't see any boilers. We don't see any gas. We don't even see gas that much over here. I don't know about you guys.
So we have some gas. When I was doing new construction for a while, and I would say maybe about 20% of the subdivisions were gas. If they had gas appliances, they were putting in gas furnaces.
Yeah, we everybody's been electrified here in where I'm at, the Texas, the whole incentives, rebates, everything, but our grid goes down if the wind blows too hard. So I don't know how that's going to work out.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's not the greatest, but we deal with it. So
yeah, we do.
Let me just ask you this then. Have you always been somebody who's handy at, doing this kind of stuff?
So pretty much my dad, I was very close to my dad growing up, and he was always having me help him with whatever. He did construction, so he'd bring me to construction sites and helping me. And my brother, give me a hand doing this, lift me up. I'd be caulking for him, when I was 10 years old. And so I've always kind of been in the field doing stuff.
Are any of your siblings in the field too, like doing either HVAC or any other trade?
Yep. So my brother is also in HVAC. He's been doing it the same amount of time as I have.
Okay, so you have some family members in that too. Because I've spoken to other guys, and they're like one of 6 or one of I don't know how many, and they're the only ones that went with their dad to go work. So like it's always interesting because my whole thing is my dad does the food service side, so he does like commercial kitchen equipment, right? So like fryers, ovens, all that kind of deal. And I used to go help him out as a helper, go do little things here and there, and that's how I got my foot in the door, I guess. My youngest brother, because I'm oldest of 3, is working with us now. He loves doing the HVAC side, and we're very opposite, but that's a good thing. Like I'm very like I'm more like my dad. I'm like, get in, get out, tough it out, all that kind of stuff. I love figuring out things, all the hard calls. He's very meticulous and borderline like OCD, and I'm not. So like sometimes it's good to have him on the job, right? Because he's gonna make sure everything's straight, done the right way, and careful too. Because I'm not always the most careful person.
Mhm.
So my youngest brother's with us, and then my middle brother worked for. I've told this a few times, but he worked for us for a day. He's like, nope, I don't want to do this. I quit. I'm good.
Yeah, no thanks. So yeah, with us, my dad had a business when we were young. So he had a few different companies before he landed in HVAC. And when he had his business, my brother and I both started working for him as teenagers. We were 16. My older sister, she went to the medical field. She
Oh,
the
okay.
same. She's like, this is not for me. So she's an RN. Again, that's not for me. So,
Mm-hmm.
we've been in it a long time. My brother and I, kind of grew up in it basically. So when we opened a business, naturally we did it together.
Okay.
'Cause we thought that made sense, but it was tough working with family for me. Him and I were very different and saw things very different. And I thought, if I stay in this business, I might not be as close to my brother one day. So I sold, and he still has the business. He runs it to this day.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool. I mean, it still stayed open and you got to do your own thing. This podcast is presented by Local. Local works tirelessly to help HVAC contractors rank higher on Google. They use an attack methodology to make sure that contractors dominate their local service areas and increase their market share and generate higher revenue. Reach out to Local at localhq.com/reliable. Mention me or the Reliable HVACR podcast, and you'll get 2 months of SEO for free. I totally get that. Now, I've talked to guys that work for their dad or like their siblings or whatever it is, but mostly like father and son type deals, and they have to split because of that dynamic, right? And it's very stressful, especially when you're not doing so well or when calls are low, and
Mhm.
that money, it's always a money thing. So
Yeah.
I totally get it, because like I work with my dad, I work with my uncle, I work with my brother, right? So we're a whole family thing. I had another uncle that used to work for us too. That went completely sour. So that's a hard one, because we don't really talk to him anymore. I mean, like you said, you're afraid
Right.
that that's going to happen. I've had it happen with one of my uncles.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's hard to work with family. I've always told people, like, I'm lucky enough that, we have good relationships, but my brother, the one that I told you is OCD and all that,
Mhm.
I have to split up him and my dad sometimes, because they'll get into it, because my dad just wants to get it done and my brother wants it done perfect.
Right. Right. Right.
I understand, but like then I have to look at my brother too. Sometimes I'm like, just please do it. I'm like, we got to get out of here.
Yeah, you're done, please. Yep. So I think if my dad was still alive, I think that my brother and I would have made it work. I think
Oh, okay,
because
yeah.
our anchor, he passed in 2017, so it was just hard, and like I said, he's still doing it. He's running the business, and I honestly feel like getting this job. I'm a teacher now. I
Yes.
teach at our local trade school, and I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be. So I feel like now at this point, I helped him get started. He got a good start, and I'm where I'm supposed to be. So I think it worked out for both of us.
Yeah, and that's an awesome story. Like, everybody's different. Everybody's path is different, and it's cool that that kind of worked out for
It
you and your
definitely.
brother, right? Like he does what he wants, and you've done this amazing thing about teaching and all that, which I'll get into in a minute. Um, but yeah, like I said, working for my dad, he had a health scare not too long ago in the hospital for a while, and he's not like he used to be. I mean, not even a year ago. So he's slowly, I'm trying to get him to backpedal out of doing so much work, right? So it's going to be
Mhm.
more on me and my brother, and we're having to kind of, you know, well, I guess we're played by ear, but we're kind of trying to figure it out as we go, and it's hard because, like you said, your dad, I guess, was your anchor, right? Like my dad is that for us too, and I'm like, please slow down, take care of yourself. That's
Yeah.
always a scary thing.
It's scary. My dad was sudden, so like, honestly, I was in the field. It was before I opened my business when we lost him, and I was still working as a service tech for another company, and I was on call the weekend, and it was sudden, and things were crazy for a while, and it took me a while to figure it out, but we opened the business in 2021, right in the beginning, and then we worked together for about a year and a half, and then like I said, when things started to get to where I felt like we couldn't talk without arguing, like everything was an argument, and my husband said to us one day, you realize you guys are saying the same thing just in your own way. And I was laughing. I'm like, it's that typical brother sister, dynamic.
My brother gets on my nerves all the time. I understand.
Right. It's different with family,
And he used to ride with me all the time, right? So now like as soon as he got his own van, I'm like, thank God, right?
Yeah. You can go do your own thing and, it works out. So,
or at least, like I'll help him out sometimes, but at least I don't have to, have him the whole day, right? It's like, I love you, but like, just, I can't do it all day, right?
Right. Now we get along great. We'll probably
outside of work, yes, right?
Yep, exactly. That's the reason we get along great is because we don't work together anymore.
Yeah, I've heard that so many times, and it's funny. I'm like, me and my dad, and my brother, like we gotta sometimes just be separate at work. We can't all be together all the time. Even though like when we started, it was great. Having a lunch together every day and doing all these little jobs right now that we've grown, it's so hectic. My summer has not ended yet. It's still 100 and some degrees here.
Yep.
I think you guys, we're getting a little bit of the rain too here and there. I think you guys, like I said, get the same kind of weather.
So
it's like hot. You're what?
We're right around 98 most days.
Yeah. See, it's like real hot. It might rain for a little bit and then it gets real hot again.
And then hot and humid.
Today we got rain, which kind of sucked. Like I had to go get the water heater and it was raining. And you would think it feels nice, but no, it doesn't. It's just super humid and hot. I'm like, this is the worst.
Yeah. So my sister lives in Texas, my oldest sister, in Argyle, and I was out there over the summer in July. And when I was there, it was still like in the 90s. And she was like, it's not even hot yet. She's like, you'll see. And then about a week into August, she sent me a screenshot of how hot it was. It was like 103. I was like, oh man, I just missed it. But yeah.
Lucky you. I'm actually looking forward to the actual fall weather. Still waiting for that.
Yeah, we don't really get one of those here. So where she is near Dallas. I remember it feeling less humid where she was than it felt here. But even out there, I went out there and the first thing I did was scope out her air conditioner and tell her to cut back all of her bushes. And these are too close. And you never stop.
So I know it's always that meme or that joke everybody says, like when they go out to whether it's a hotel or Airbnb or just out in public, you see the ductwork. It's just something that you notice after you get into the field.
Yeah. Well, when I go to Airbnbs, I walk around and put my hand over the condenser just to double check it's pulling out the hot air. I can't help myself.
We got in to me, it was a pretty nice hotel for vacation this summer up in, I think it was Houston. We went up to Houston because I have friends up there. And I guess they wanted to hide the AC unit, right? It's one of those that's under the windowsill. I don't know what you call them, but like in the hotels, you have those.
Yeah, that's through the wall.
Yeah, and I guess they wanted to hide it, so they put like a bench over it, right? And then my girlfriend was like, "This is not gonna work, right?" I'm like, "No, all the air is getting trapped underneath it." So we had to. Yeah. We ended up just taking off the bench and like throwing it to the other side of the room and stuff. And I was like, "Okay, much better."
Man, some people don't even think about those things. It's all we think about being in this trade, I think.
And then, you do service work too. Like they never think of the service technician either. Like, oh, it's never going to need to be replaced or never going to be broken down. They don't need access to it.
No, we'll just run the copper right over these screws right in front of them. No big deal.
Today's episode is also brought to you by NAVIEN. If you haven't seen it yet, NAVIEN has entered the HVAC space in a big way with the new NPF hydro furnace. This hydronic forced air furnace delivers industry-leading variable capacity operation from 15 to 100% in both natural and propane configurations. You can learn more at navieninc.com. I also want to thank DIVERSITECH. They simplify your work. They have everything a contractor needs to complete a job. That goes from equipment mounting, condensate, management, tools, maintenance chemicals, electrical components, indoor air quality, and much more. They have different branches under the same umbrella. More than likely, you're already using some of their products or tools. So go check out diversitech.com, and it's your one-stop shop for everything HVAC. I do a lot of rooftops, so it's not as bad as I've seen like some of the, like, you know, when they, like you said, bushes or anything that might obstruct your access to a system on the side of the house or anything. I've seen like really bad ones. But like I said, I do rooftop stuff. So like I have one that is really annoying. It's a walk-in cooler, but the condenser's on the roof. So when I go up there, they ran a, I had to double check because I want to make sure it wasn't a power line, but they ran a cable line like right over it, and it hangs on the unit. So when I got to like get on one side and take off the bolts or whatever, and then get on the other side to get to the condenser or something like that, or like the service ports, I got to keep ducking under this because it's a small condenser, right? It's only a few feet off the ground, but like that line is ran right on it. So I'm like ducking over it. It's too tall for me to jump over it, so I got to duck under it all the time.
Right.
And I'm like, come on, guys.
Yeah, no, with residential. So I do residential. It's I don't do a lot of commercial at all, like light commercial. But that is builders. They put bushes all around the units because we want to hide them. It's ugly, and then people don't know and they don't trim them. And yeah, it's the worst.
We had one that was a pain that they have landscapers at this because I do a lot of fast food chains, right? So I needed to change up. It was a walk-in box that was outside of the building, right? So it was kind of easy to get to. It's like attached to the back of the building. At some point, their landscapers put bushes and like let them grow out, and we had to replace the condenser. Now we have a Genie lift that we got not too long ago, and I was like, okay, it's easy work, not a problem. Then we get there and we're like, oh man, the bushes. I was like, whatever. Like we damaged some of it. We had to like make our way through it, and I'm like, oh, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe they won't notice.
So honestly, like I used to be really worried about that. Like I really was. I didn't want to hurt people's bushes.
Yeah.
And then after a while, I really got to the point where I was like, you know what? They know I'm coming here to work on it. And I'll tell people like, hey, I'm going to have to trim some of that back. And oh yeah, whatever you need. And I'll take my side cutters and I'll just cut what I need.
If they know you're going, I would assume they would make sure that there's nothing. Because I've heard of other ones where they have, because I know guys, I actually know a guy that I do another show with, Jake, that he works in Florida, and a lot of his stuff is in the garage. Like all his indoor units are in the garage, right? I'm like, I always tell him, it must be nice, dude, because all of mine are in the attic. Like if I wanted to do residential, they're all in the attic, and I'm like, no, I'm good.
It's a good split, I feel like, where I'm at.
So he gets a lot of those, and I'm like, man, because sometimes he's in there with, their vehicles or their expensive bikes or whatever it is. I'm like, dude, I'd be worried about like them saying something,
Right. Well, and then too, the part for me that sometimes is a blessing, sometimes not so much. Air handlers are being put inside closets in the middle of the house now. So not like in a hallway off to where you have your own space, like right, like in the middle of like a living room, there's a closet there. And that's where the air handler is. So like they're working and people are watching TV and they're cooking and they're all around you. And sometimes it's nice because you're in the air conditioning when it's maintenance and you're like, this is amazing. Yeah. But,
I know I had my last house, I had one and I was like, okay, great. It's in the closet, right? When I was looking to get into the house, but it was on a 2-story, so it was on the 2nd story. So I immediately, because the previous people didn't use a filter. I guess I didn't know what a filter was, right? Okay. I was like, oh, okay. So I looked underneath. And I'm like, oh man, the thing's plugged up. So I pulled it to clean it, but man, like going up and down the stairs was a whole other thing.
Yeah, no, the worst. Yeah, no, I agree with that. When they're upstairs.
Yeah, so I see that you're in the field still now, right? And you've been doing AC work, like you said, you've done residential. So when you got into the field, let me backtrack a little bit.
Mhm.
How did you get into the field? Like you said, you worked for somebody else before you were working with your family, right?
So I worked with my dad starting when I was 16 to 2008. So in 2008, I was in the office for all of that time, and he was in an accident and he got traumatic brain injury, and his business closed down. I worked for a couple different companies and wound up at Progressive Air, who I stayed there for a very long time. I was there for a few years, and my dad passed away in 17. And then at that time, my brother and I were like, what are we doing? We're both still working for other people. Like we know we
Okay.
can do this. And then we opened our business in 21. We saved toward it. In 15 is when I was at Progressive for about 3 years by then, something like that. And I decided I wanted to go in the field, and I was like, you know what? I've been in this field a long time. I don't make enough money working in the office. You make not a lot of money. So I was working during the day, 8 to 5. And then I went to school at night from 6 to 10. I did that for 9 months. I earned all of my certifications and got all my tools and experience. And then they put me right in the field, where I worked in the field for them for about 5 years before we opened the business. So then I was still in the field then. I loved residential. Residential was like my baby. I like helping people. Like that's where my heart is, and like even just yesterday, I went on a service call and this lady got the short end of the stick, and I just wanted to help her,
Mm,
So,
yes. Did he
and
get
then
to
when
teach you anything about service?
so not service. When I actually told him in 2015 that I was it was 14, and I went to school in 15. I told him I was gonna go back to school and learn to do service. He tried to discourage me from it. To be honest, he didn't think that it was a place for a woman, and he was
Oh yeah.
unsure that I'd be successful. He said he had hired a woman at one point, and he had a lot of people that just didn't really want her to come out, and he was very worried for me. So when I did it, I was like, I'm doing this. I don't make enough money, and I feel like I was diagnosing things over the phone. Like people would
Oh,
call, and I was like, listen, I'll bet the service tech, like, hey, it's going to be this, or it's going to be a cap, or it's going to be a contractor, and I'm like, I don't belong in the office, and I wanted to be in the field. So I did it. And I loved it when I did it. I really enjoyed that,
I mean,
going to someone.
you can tell by your videos on over on TikTok, and I've been following you for a while. You do a lot of good work, and yeah, I was just interested because, or that's interesting, because it is a little bit of a. I mean, you see more women now in the field, which is great, which is another
Mhm.
good thing about, and that's what I like about the TikTok side is you do see, I see more women on TikTok, right?
Mhm.
In any trade, I've seen electricians, plumbers, HVAC, and it's really good content. Them at work, some of them do way more stuff than I can even do, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't even get into construction or anything like that. And I'm like, wow, Um, I always tell people I stay in my lane. I do service work for kitchen restaurants, and that's it. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting because I've talked to other women on the podcast, doing this for a while now, and I've heard that they've been turned away when they show up to a residential call. Right? Somebody answers the door and they're like, "Where's the real technician?" or "Where's
Yeah.
I mean, did you have that experience when you got out there too?
So I did. I did. I quite a few times where I would always call people to let them know I'm on the way, and people would say, "Oh, you're coming? But you're a girl," and I'd say, "I know," and I'd
Which
go and
is
I would do
so
my thing.
strange to me that they're actually saying these things. But go
Right.
ahead.
No, and there's been times I've showed up still, and they look behind me, like they look past me, like to
Yeah.
see if someone's with me, and I'm like, it's just me, and oh, and they'll sometimes have asked me if I have some help to come help me, or is there someone else I can call, and every time I've been able to talk my way into that house and prove my way wrong, prove what I know, because I
Yeah.
feel like, to me, like it's an insult. I actually did. I had one lady who my very first summer, I'll never forget this lady. She was a very old, and she's sitting in her garage smoking her cigarettes, and as I'm there, and she needed a reversing valve solenoid coil, and it wasn't switching back and forth, running in heat, in the summertime. So I'm like, okay. So I go get the new one. I go to put it in, and the dang screw, it was rusted out, and I stripped it, and I'm struggling with this screw, and I can't get the thing out. And I had to go, and I didn't have the tool I needed to back it into it and back it out, for strip screws. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to run to Home Depot. I'm going to get what I need, and I'll be right back. And she looks at me and goes, well, I guess women can't do everything that men can do. And I said, yes, I can. I just need a different tool. I'll be right back. And I went, I blew off some steam. I came back, I fixed it. And she was just like, huh, all right, well, I see. And she, and that for me, like, I could have been like, you know what? I'm not dealing with this, but I wanted to prove her wrong.
See, that's the other thing. Like what, like with any technician, keeping your cool is part of the job. I mean, that's something that maybe doesn't get talked about too much, but like I get frustrated with customers too. And I mean, nothing like what you had, but when I started, I was the owner's son, right? Like my dad was running this business, and they're like, who's this kid? Little did they know I was the actual like contractor, because I got my license right away. Like after school, I went into it as quickly as I could. So I had that little stigma on me, that I didn't know what I was doing either, or, anything like that. And you have to keep your cool. You have to, I mean, I learned it later because I used to get upset too. And I'm like, okay, I have to if a customer gives you, you can only take so much, obviously. So, if somebody's just being impossible to work with, that's a different story. But if you can keep your cool and turn that customer, or prove that customer that you know what you're doing, or you can do the work, that's always the best way to go about it. And that's the best feeling. I'm sure you felt really great after that, that you can prove them wrong. Right.
Yeah. And even though in the next year when I saw her, because they sent me on her maintenance the next year. And of course, as soon as I pulled up to the house, I'm like, oh man. And she looked at me and she's like, oh, you're still doing it. And I was like, I am. And she's like, good for you. And I was like, oh, I broke her,
That's always the best.
She liked me, but that was probably what pushed me harder. Some people would have been like, oh, but it pushed me harder to be better.
That's always a great way to go about it. I mean, and like you said, that'll make you better if you can, challenge accepted. Let me prove this, right? Yeah. And that's the way to go about it.
For the most part, it was things like that. There was only one customer that I ever went to that made me uncomfortable in a way that I wouldn't go back there. And it was like following me around. Like you can feel them like looking at you. They made me feel like not safe. And I don't know how to explain it really, except the way he was talking, the comments he was making, they were inappropriate about me being a woman and my butt while I'm standing on the ladder. And I'm like, this is inappropriate. And that I diagnosed the unit, and then I left. I did. I asked them not to ever send me back. And I actually put a note in the file, and it was funny because they fixed it, and then they said they fired that customer. And I was like, oh. They're like, you don't get freaked out like that. So it had to be pretty bad. And I'm like, yeah, I usually have pretty thick skin, but that was.
Yeah. I mean, you need a thick skin in this business no matter what, but I can't imagine. Cause like I fell into the commercial side, and that's where I want to be at. I mean, I always say, hats off to the residential techs, because you're in other people's homes. Like you said, I mean, you don't know what you're getting into. Call to call, really, unless you've been there before, like you said, but you don't know what you're getting into. I've made some good friends with guys that do strictly residential in other places, and there's always those weird ones that they get into where there's like tons of, I don't know if you run into like tons of animals or cats or anything in the house. There could be they could be using the restroom inside, and you got to go in there and figure out if you're gonna be able to do the job.
So funny story. I had a new guy with me, riding with me. It was probably about gosh, it was almost 5 years ago, because he just actually came and talked to my students about what it looks like after you graduate. It's 5 years ago. When he first started the company, I trained him, and we went into this customer's house. She had a bunch of dogs, and they used the bathroom in the house. And I remember when we walked in, like I walked in and he went to walk in behind me, and dude just turned around and went right back to the truck. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, what was I going to do? So I just, and I went in, and as I'm walking in talking to her about what's wrong, she's got a broom sweeping the poop into a pile. And I'm like, okay, she told me what the problem is. I went back out to the truck, and I get this guy, and I'm like, you got to get it together. Like, he's like, but I can't go back in there. I'm like, yes, you can. Like, luckily her unit was in the garage, and we opened it up and worked. And then we just asked her to turn it back on at the thermostat when it was ready. We did not end up having to go back. But he's like, how do you do that? I'm like, you don't breathe. You breathe as little as you possibly can. I don't know what to tell you. I couldn't believe it. He just ran.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Like I said, call to call, you could run into something like that, and then the next call could be like, one of the cleanest ones you go to. You never know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was, sometimes it's a safety issue about going in the house, because that all that ammonia in the house, it's not good either. So you want to be careful what you
I
do.
had one. The only one that I had was similar was, which it was a shame that it was at a hospital, but we had to get up into the drop ceiling, and apparently that had a pest problem. So we were trying to get up there, and it was one of our guys. I didn't have to go up there, thank God. But we went. One of our guys went up there, and he couldn't even breathe. He tried to do what he could, and he ran back down. He's like, I can't. There's rat poop everywhere, and you could like smell it. I think I like tried to take a peek, and it would hit me, and I'm like, nope. That's a difficult thing to work through.
It is. Rats are common in attics. One time I was at a church, and I'm trying to find a leak in the copper, and I reached my hand up to grab onto something, and I'm like, oh, that was gross. Yeah.
In the commercial side, I deal with a lot of, well, not a lot, but like I've dealt with rats. What I deal with more with is like the roaches and stuff. Like I had pulled off because like they're like our AC stopped working and this and that, and I pulled off the thermostat off the wall, and it was just like covered inside, infested, right?
Oh.
And I was like, okay. And I always, after a couple of those calls, I always wear gloves now. Like I can't. Like and I've had dead rats and possums in weird places, and I'm like, I always have to wear gloves.
Yeah, because that's gross. It's never, you don't get used to those things.
They get used to it because I told the manager, and they're like, oh, it figured, or that she knew or something, and I'm like, okay,
oh my gosh.
like you might want to take care of that. I mean, I'm not health department, I'm not pest control. I'm like, you need to take care of that,
That's on you, but
that's yeah. So then you got into it because of your dad, you worked with your brother. How did this teaching gig come about?
All right. So when I decided to sell, it was a rough decision for me. And I went back to service, working for somebody else for about 8 months while I tried to figure it out. And, I'm a Christian, and I prayed a lot about, what am I supposed to do? Like, I thought that was my life, and it's not. Like, what do I do? And praying one day, and then I get this email about this position for an HVAC instructor at Marchman. And I'm like, okay, let's give it a shot. So I applied on a Monday. They called me Tuesday and asked me to come in for an interview Thursday. So I did. And I was hired that afternoon. So I was like, I just feel like this, for the school, it's a trade school. And it's just part of the district school board. So I'm like, things don't happen that quickly if it's not meant to be. So I just felt like I went, got fingerprinted, and put in my notice where I was, and started in 2 weeks. And, I would have never in a million years pictured myself teaching, because it gave me such anxiety to think about standing in front of people and talking.
Yeah.
I was never, and I'm just like, you know what? I can do this. And I started in the shop, like more having the guys in the shop because I was more comfortable there.
Hmm.
So I could have everyone standing around me at the shop, and it was fine. It was when they're all sitting in their seats and staring at me that I like would get that, little feeling in my belly. But then it just kind of grew on me, and these guys, like, I just really started to love it. And then last summer, May was graduation. And when I first started, I had this one student that was really struggling. And I kind of pushed him a lot because I saw potential in him, but he didn't have the motivation. And then when he graduated and he got a job, and he like texted me this long like text thanking me for pushing him. And he's like, I never could have done this without you. And I'm like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be. So
That's awesome. But yeah, like even myself, like when I was going through college and all that, I hated doing the little presentations you got to do in front of the class. So I never would have thought of doing anything like that either. But uh, I remember at one point my girlfriend was like, "Would you ever like teach?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know." Like I guess you had that mentality of just going for it and just doing it. I don't know. You didn't. Well, I guess you answered that you were a little bit
I
nervous
was
or
terrified.
something. Yeah.
I was terrified, but like, so the way I saw it is I went in the field and I worked my butt off and I did all of these things to own my own business. And it happened, and then it didn't work out. And I did not want to open another one
Yeah.
to compete against my brother. I didn't want to start over. And I said, I'm going to get out of the field. I'll be off at 3:30 every day. I can pick up my son from school and all the things I never realized I was missing out on because, you don't get home till 9 o'clock every night in the summer when you're a service tech. So it just, to me, it was like I had to. And then I did it. And then I realized I was better at it than I thought I would once I got past the nerves.
Hmm.
Um, and it was hard, but you just do it. Still too, I stand up in front of the class sometimes and I can feel myself swaying, back and forth and like kind of because it's nerves but you get to know the guys and they're like, that when you see them all succeeding, it's like something you can't even explain how good it makes you feel.
So, if you don't mind, what is the trade school that you teach at?
Marchman Technical College. So we're
And
in Newport Richey.
oh, I'm sorry, say that again.
We're in Newport Richey in Florida.
Is that what kind of program is that? Like how long and all, I don't know. What do you guys do there?
Yep. So it's a clock hour program. So it's 1,350 hours. They have all different trades from, welding, electricity, auto, they've got culinary, different digital cinema and classes like that. So it's all the trades. We also do dual enrollment with the high school. So
Oh,
if you're a junior or a senior and you want to go to trade school, you can apply for dual enrollment and the district will pay for you to go to college while you're still in high school. So it usually, with all the breaks for the school, comes out to about a year and a half. But halfway or 70%, I'm sorry. Once they hit 900 hours, students are eligible for OJT. So then we have a lot of business partners that will send them to these different business partners to get a job, and they'll earn a wage while they're still in school and earning that degree and certifications.
that sounds like a really good school actually. Because you get well, I've kind of heard of that kind of stuff, like where it starts in high school and all that, which I
Mhm.
think is great because it doesn't get talked about enough. I wish that would have been around when I was in high school because they always tell you to be A, B, or C, and that's it, and they don't tell you about the trades, and that's good. Also, because like I went to a community college to do mine, so I took a year off after high school because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Even with my dad being in the food service industry, I mean, I still don't like that side of it. I prefer doing what I do. Uh,
Mhm.
so I didn't know, and then my parents kind of brought that to my attention, like there's this other side to the business because he wanted to do, I guess, what you would call hot and cold side, right?
Mhm.
So looked into it. I went to a community college. I lucked out. Mine was really good. We had a lot of equipment to actually work on, right? I
Mhm.
see that that's what you guys do too. So like the more. hands-on you can get, I always feel like that's the best part of it, because obviously you do the lecture side of it. I did okay with the lecture side, but like the hands-on stuff was really where a lot of us like got interested, intrigued, and kind of piqued our interest. And at our school, we didn't have. I guess we had like a, I don't know, it was like a club or something that we joined, and there you could go do like outside work sometimes, like volunteer work, right? Um, and then when you graduated, they would help you like get a job, because there would be companies that they knew that were looking for kids and stuff. So all that is cool. Do you guys have a lot of equipment that you guys get to work on? Because I've seen you in your videos when you were starting out, showing them an AC unit and kind of, showing them around the indoor unit, and kind of walking them through.
Yep. So we have a few different things that we do. We have 6 working units, 5 vertical and 1 horizontal in our shop, that we break, they fix, kind of
I know. I
thing.
think I've seen you simulate like certain things with it that they can figure out, right?
Yep. I'll either, like, I have some of my partners give me bad parts and I'll put the bad parts in, or
Mm.
I'll just go in and I'll break something and, let them figure it out. And then we have a couple stations, like we have a wiring station where I let them see if they can figure it out, draw their own diagrams, and then I tear it all apart and let them wire it up
Oh
to
man,
get me.
I was so scared of those because they had us do one. I don't remember what kind of system it was, and they just ripped all the wires out. And I'm like, oh my god, what do I do?
Yep, yep. I mean, you got to be able to know how components work, and that's what we're trying to tell them. It's,
Yeah.
don't pay attention to the color of the wire, know how it works. And then, we have a recovery station where, they'll recover the refrigerant, vacuum the unit, put it back in, that kind of thing. And then we just started a new station, end of last year, where we're building circuits, because we found that we need a little more practice with the electrical circuits and diagrams. So we have them building boards, starting with a simple circuit, adding
Hmm.
controls and changing parts, and then all the way to more complex circuits. And this actually, some of the guys said to me after completing their hard circuits, they said, "Man, this was probably the best thing that we've done yet, because I feel like I really understand how all those components work." And I was like, thank you, something that works, it's trial and error.
Yeah, and I had a few, like 3 or 4 teachers throughout mine was like well, I guess it was similar, like a year and a half, because the other semester was like your basics. So I mean, technically it was 2 years, but you got to take your English and math and all that. But um, my teachers, 2 of them work for the school, right? Doing the what do you call it, the chillers and all that stuff that they maintain. 2 of them own their own business outside of the school, right? I don't know where they found the time, but they ran businesses, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
that was always key, because I got 2 different point of views there, right? Somebody that worked for somebody, and somebody that ran their own business. And then they would come in and give us, some stories, or they would, have these little discussions before class started, and stuff like that. And then um, our train, our I guess lab activities, whatever you call them, um, were really good too. Like I think I learned a lot. And like you said, the don't pay attention to the colors. I had a classmate. So we had these little boards right at our desks that we had to wire in, following. I think we had to follow a diagram, or wire it up the way they told us. Right.
Mhm.
They gave us red and black wires to plug and play, and then get the circuit going. One guy did all of his in black, like
Oh,
everything, right? So all of us had 2 colors to choose from. I forgot what the difference was, right? I don't know if it was hot and neutral, or I don't remember what it was. But this guy did it all in black, and then we're all looking at him like he was crazy. And then the teacher was like, "You know what? This is a perfect example of, colors don't matter. Just follow your diagram, and trust, that if you can read a schematic, you can do anything." So I held on to that, and I've been able to do that, because I had one that I always tell people that almost kicked my ass, because it was a Lennox unit RTU that I've never seen before. Somebody previously had ripped all the wires out and wire nutted everything, bypassing some of the boards, and caused a whole mess. I had to sit there. I think it took me a couple days, wire for wire, and figure that thing out to get it working again.
Oh man.
But
Yeah.
I kind of learned that in school. So I was like, I mean, I can figure it out.
Yep. As I when that's what one thing we do is I don't ever put back the colors that were there. Like just know how they work, you know. And I had a student that got so good at it and he was so far ahead. I actually went, I didn't even let him look at it first. I just ripped it all apart and he came in one day and I said, go wire up unit one. And he got it. He took him most of the day, but he got it and he got it back running. So they
Yeah.
figure it out.
The electrical part of it was always my weakness, but I think I relied on my dad. He used to be an
Mhm.
electrician. So like, it was always like weird stuff that I had to ask him for because I didn't know as far as like supply power, you know, trying to figure out things or putting in a new system, and we got to do the electrical and all that. But as
Mhm.
far as like wiring to a schematic, or because I work on a lot of coolers and freezers, right? Like a lot of safeties in between, even on the RTUs, right? Our guys always call me, and I'm like, okay, you know, just slow down. Look at the schematic. If you don't have a schematic, because a lot of it, you know, they rub off. It happens.
Yeah.
Um,
Fade.
we're gonna start testing, and we're gonna start looking, right. Like everything. And another thing that I took from school was like, once I realized that everything is just a switch. I mean, it's a little harder now with boards that we have, but once I realized everything is just a switch, it's either temperature, pressure, you know, triggered on and off
Mhm.
basically, or it switches over to something else, defrost timers, you know, all that stuff. That's when it really clicked for me, and I was like, okay, I got this, right? Everything makes sense once you know what they do.
Right. That's what I've been putting in their head. And like even my 10th graders, I just because I have ninth and 10th grade a little bit too.
Oh, okay.
Um, so we have a contract with a high school where their ninth and 10th will do an hour of class, like as an elective with us at the end of the day after all the adults leave. And it's a little more interesting with the little kids. But I just started that with the 10th graders, actually trying to get them just those little relays, the little regular with the double pull, double throw
Hmm.
relays, trying to get them to understand how they work. I think we've been on for a little over a week and they're still like, I'm like, oh, okay. So, you know, you start slow with them, but those things I didn't realize when I first got in because for me, it wasn't that hard for me. But a
Uh-huh.
lot of people that don't have that electrical background,
Yeah.
it's really challenging. And talking to the business partners, because we do what's called an advisory board meeting every year. And all of our companies that hire our students, they all come in and they tell us like, you know, this is what we need you to focus on. This is what the guys are missing, this kind of thing. And that's what they said was reading schematics, electrical, and low voltage shorts is what
Yeah.
the field is really struggling with, right? The new guys.
And I see it too. Like I said, I get a lot of calls for that kind of stuff, like wiring up things or
Yeah.
safeties or anything like that.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not gonna say that I'm like a wiring guru or anything. Like I have to like look at it and kind of analyze it too. But once you figure it out or know what components do, because I had another guy that was on here that mentors, and he was like, I got to drill in the major components to some of these apprentices because they're in 4 years and they still don't know like the cycle, right?
Oh my god.
And I'm like, really? I know. Hey,
That's so good.
I had another guy that I've been talking to that he's on Instagram mostly, and he'll pop up these videos or kind of, it's like constructive criticism that he does. It's also just roasting people, but like because he does it in a funny manner. But so there's a lot of I don't know, Instagram people that will post. I mean, I'm sure it's on TikTok. I haven't been on TikTok recently, but they post to market their business, right? And they're like, okay, we're gonna do this to a system, and then like there's a guy that explained a compressor, and I made a comment because I'm like, everything after he said this is a compressor was completely wrong, right?
Oh,
He's like, it changes what does he say? It changes stages from liquid to vapor in the compressor. It
mm.
it makes the compressor makes it cold inside and I don't know what. And I'm like, I was like, dude, that's hurting my head just listening to that.
You know, people on social media. I mean, they can be really rough. I used to really get defensive, and then I had to just stop because I realized they don't know. I had one guy that said he was a technician, and when I was explaining to someone how a system removes heat from your house, like he literally commented on the video and was like, "That is so stupid. That is not how they work." Like, and went on this rant, and I'm like, just bite your tongue, Valerie. It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
No, that
Yeah.
was man. And when that guy mentioned to me about, like, you know, younger guys not knowing the cycle, it took me back to school, right? And I was like, that was the one thing that I really wanted to get right away. And I actually, it seemed, I got overwhelmed when I started because it seemed like a lot, right? I'm like, okay, high temperature vapor, high temperature this, high, like low temperature this, like when does it change its a state and all that. And then like they drilled it into us, though. Like they drilled it in, and I could picture it vividly right now, like the way they taught us. And I'm like, okay, I understand
Yeah.
that. And that's another thing, right? I've talked to that with other guys. Like a lot of guys that do the troubleshooting, or like you said, or like you do residential, you go out there and you got to figure out what the problem is. If you know what state your refrigerant is in each of the components or what they do, you can figure it out. Because, you know, I've gone out to a lot of calls, and it's like, oh, it's the compressor, oh, it's the TXV or whatever it is. And I'm like, did you check if something else, like restriction or anything like that, right? Because you're going to have a lot of, or I guess the main one is the one you always want to check first is your airflow, right? Because I've
Right.
had guys that dump in refrigerant because they have a low suction. I'm like, did you check your high side? Because some guys are just not, they just check the low side, right? I'm like, you plugged up filter, dirty coil, you know, whatever else. There's a lot
Mm-hmm.
that goes into it.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So
for sure.
are you still in the field though? Because I thought I saw you working.
Yes. So I do side work. I
Okay.
do, and if anybody needs anything, I help out friends of family, different things like that. I don't do a lot of change outs, but I do have somebody that pulls permits for me if I need to do any change outs so that everything's
Okay.
permitted and legal the way it's supposed to. Like actually yesterday I went to a service call. My cousin from New Jersey knows somebody that just moved here and right close to where I live in Spring Hill, and brand new house. She just bought it, moved in 2 weeks ago, and our AC's down. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I go, pan in the attic, full of water, get the pan, flush the drain line, and found that thing 3.5 pounds low on refrigerant. Of course, it's 6 years old, so it's out of warranty. She's the second owner. And those kinds of things, they make me so angry because
Yeah.
that person knew when they sold that house,
I was gonna say
that
it happens a lot, unfortunately. Like they're just trying to get the
that.
house sold and they hide everything that's wrong with it.
And she said she moved in there. She found a crack in the pool that showed up after. And I'm like, and that's probably the biggest thing that kept me in this field when I sold the business. And I was like, what do I do now?
That was
And
that was gonna be my next
help.
question.
Yeah. It's like helping people is like, there's so many people out there that, and they just don't know. And it's not, I just like to be that voice to be like, no, and she actually, this lady bought the home warranty on the house. So lucky for
Mm,
her, she's going to call them and they're going to come out and fix it. But had she not, like, that's a new unit at this point, like you don't replace a coil that's out of warranty. I mean, you could, but it's so expensive. Like, why not give her a new warranty? She's going to spend all that money.
yeah.
The warranty company's not going to do that. They're going to
No.
band-aid it. You're going to fix it.
No.
Whatever.
They're gonna make a world of trouble for that.
I know, but she's like, I just spent all this money, closed on this house,
Yeah.
and she's like in tears, and I'm like sitting there like, oh, I hate this for people.
So that, like I said, that was gonna be one of my next questions was the like what kind of, why do you still do field work if you got a teaching gig? What drives you? Is it just helping people?
Yeah, so that's exactly what it is people that like I will initially recommend somebody else. I will initially say, hey, call my brother or call Progressive because they're my two people,
Yeah.
if they don't want to and they really just prefer me to come out. I have a few people that I still go to their house from when the beginning, and they're like, honestly, I just never had anybody I can trust the way I can feel like I can trust you. Like, done, I'm there, you know.
Okay.
Really what I tell them is like, emergencies are just hard for me because I do work during the day. So you might end up waiting for me, you know, if, and most people do, some people don't. But that's one thing it's in my heart.
You
That is
can't.
what I want to
You
I
just
do.
can't.
So
You can't get out of it.
yeah, 'cause
Um,
every time I tell my husband I'm done and I'm not running any more calls, somebody calls and it just tugs at my heartstrings, and there I am back running calls. So that's what happened
no,
this
but
summer. I was so busy I didn't want to do it, and then
yeah.
things happened.
I've been down that path with. I had a customer. It's a new customer that we got, and they were looking for somebody because they felt like they were getting price gouged and screwed and whatever you want to call it. And
Mhm.
it was a um, mother and daughter duo because they own two restaurants here, right? So there was a guy going out, doing work for them. He replaced something on their walk-in cooler, I believe. She told us what it was, and then the price on it was like a few thousand. I'm like, that thing is not that expensive, right? So I'm like, okay, that would have been way cheaper with us. So she told us about
Mhm.
that, and then she was like, yeah. And then it broke again a week later, and he came, and he actually told them that like a wire came loose, and he still charged the service fee and everything to go out there. And I was like, that would have been warranted,
It should have been.
So
Yeah.
I felt horrible, and I'm like, okay. So we took on that customer. They've been really good. We've had a lot of calls there. I recently went out to one for them, and they didn't realize that the unit was under warranty because I had to call for something, and they sent out a new controller for this cooler. I'm like, it's covered, so you're good. Like I felt good,
Yeah.
telling them that.
Yeah. It's that feeling that you get, you know, some people, they just really appreciate someone they can trust, and, you know, to have to be that person. And even that's why I do TikToks, is because, man, when I first started, there were so many things that little things I learned on the way that, man, I wish I knew it all. So like I just wanted to teach other people and make sure they all have that same advantage, you know. I don't
It's
know.
so weird because I mean nowadays you can find anything online if you really want to look. Because when I started in '07 ish,
Mhm.
there was no YouTube, Instagram. Sure,
No.
sure as hell wasn't any TikTok or anything like that to look up anything. Manuals were hard to find sometimes. Like there was a whole ordeal with that, right?
And it wasn't Google where you can just search, put in your model number and manual, and it just populates for you like there
I
now.
I would. I mean, there was Google, so
Yeah.
I would still punch it in and pray that something came up, but like it
Yeah.
hardly ever did, right?
Yeah. It wasn't as easy.
No, every now and then I might be lucky that a manual was up or like some sort of literature, but then again, I just told my last guest, like, how long did it take to download it, right? Like my phone service was horrible, or whatever laptop I had, and I was like, it took forever. So I mean, that's the whole
Yeah.
thing. Now you have so
Right.
many resources that you can look up anything. But also, it's funny that when you're on TikTok, I've done the YouTube thing for a while, like the messages and the comments, right, from the younger people, usually it's like, I didn't know this, or thank you, that helped me so much. Like those are the messages, and that is why like I keep doing it too, because I I've never been this person. Somebody recently was like, man, it was a friend or a neighbor that I grew up with ran into my parents, and he's like, I can't believe Adrian is doing what he's doing, because he follows me on social media. And I was like, the only reason I'm doing this is because of those messages that I get, those comments that I get.
Yeah. I had somebody ask me to do a full video on a blower motor change out once, and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna do my best. And I did as best I can. I sped it up. It was that full 3 minutes, you know, when they
I think I
first did
saw
the
that
three.
one.
And the comments I get on that video, like I have a bunch of people that'll like, man, I just watched this and then changed my first blower motor. Thank you so much. And I'm like, man,
it's
that's
so
amazing. Because like
it's so
they,
weird, but that does happen, and that's what I tell people. Like that's the best part of it, because like when I talk to others that are looking to start posting, I'm like, honestly, whatever your job is, if you're just changing filters, if you're just you know, a maintenance guy for the company, or you're an apprentice, you can still post, right? Because somebody else is going to be doing the same thing that you're doing, and they're going to appreciate like the insight or like any little tips or anything that you do. Maybe you do something a certain way that nobody else does. Like, that's all good. We need more content. I love running into like new TikToks or Instagram profiles, and seeing new people up there. And I think it's a little crazy that I like a lot of us watch HVAC content after work, right? But I still do it. I still follow as many people as I can and watch it.
I feel like it's so funny because I always thought like I watch other things, but then literally when I go through my For You page, it's all like I must really not watch other things.
No, it's
But
funny
it's
because I just told my girlfriend, I was like, my feed is all like HVAC or like cats and dogs.
yeah, right. Because I find it interesting how other people do things because
Yeah.
all around the world people do things differently. So I've learned a few things myself, like oh that's easier than the way I do it, like and you always learn in things.
People sharing their tools. Like I've learned about tools that I'm like, I'm gonna get that, make
Yeah,
my job easier. Um,
right.
tools, or like even in the comments, sometimes people will correct me. I don't mind
Mm-mm.
constructive criticism. I've learned from my comments as
Hmm.
well, because I tell people I don't know everything, and
Yep.
I only do this little corner of HVAC that I know, right? I don't know like everything. I don't know residential. I don't know heavy commercial, and I'm always learning, and I can learn from people that watch my stuff too. So it's all great. I mean, they're gonna have those trolls, bad apples, but just gotta ignore it.
Yeah, once I learned how to ignore them and then, pick out the comments that are actually helpful. Because there, like you said, there are some people that'll comment something. I'll be like, oh, I didn't know
I
that,
didn't.
or
Yeah.
and they'll be like, oh, I think that I had one person say to me once, like, why do you post things if you're not sure? And I'm like, I mean, I was sure, but sometimes there's easier ways or different ways, and there's always room to learn. I'm like, I just want to share my experience and hope to help somebody, you know.
Yeah. I don't know, my first year into it, I was always worried about what I said, how I did
Mhm.
things. After that, like right now, I don't care. I do things the way I do them. I know I'm doing them to the best of my ability, or to the book, or whatever is normal or code here, right?
Mhm.
Because that's another thing, people will criticize you left and right.
Work smarter, not harder. Come on now. I had one
No.
guy tell me one day, what did he say? Oh, I was up on a roof and he said something along the lines of, "You'll never know what it's like to rope up a 100-ton compressor by yourself." And I'm like, I don't want to know what that's like.
No.
Like, I
No.
don't need to. No thanks.
No. I mean, I work for myself. I get it. We've done things a hard way before, but I don't want to do that anymore.
No, they make little lifts now that are going to bring it right up for you. Just lift it up. It's
Yeah, we
much
get a
easier.
we get a crane, or we just bought like a lift that we use for a
Yeah,
lot of
little
the.
genie.
Yeah, Genie lift, and that
Yeah.
thing is amazing. It's amazing. I will never rope up anything heavy again.
No, well worth the money if you can work smarter. It's any tool that makes your job easier, I think, is worth it.
I've learned that now, getting into my older years. It's not worth it.
Of course.
It's not worth
No.
your body breaking down.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so you said your husband, real quick, your husband was working on the roof. Is he in the trades at all?
So when we opened the business, he did work with us for a little while. He actually works for the county we live in, Pasco County Utilities. He's a pump station foreman. He was working there before. He left there to come work at the business with us.
Mm.
When that did not work out, he went back to the county and he's right back in there.
So
So he works for
was he in the field with you guys too?
just while we had the business. He
Yeah.
was doing installs. So him and my brother did the installs where I did the office and the service when we
Oh,
had
okay.
our business.
So right now
So
he
yeah.
doesn't. Right now he doesn't help you on the service.
No, he did not love HVAC.
Okay.
He did not at all. He said, I only did it for you. So he
Okay.
does when I have service calls. That is one of the benefits of doing side work is when I have service calls, he does come with me.
Mm.
Because he does like to help me. He just doesn't like doing it
Yes, he
himself.
likes to help you or be with you, but he's the work,
Yeah.
not a fan.
Right. So like yesterday when I was adding refrigerant and I needed him to go up in the attic and do something for me. Actually, I said, all right, I'm going to run up in the attic. I want to recheck this TD. I got to grab a couple things. He's like, no, I'll do it. Yes. Thank you. Please do.
Oh, that's awesome. I was just curious. So
Of course.
I don't want to keep you too long. We've been here over an hour now. Is there anything like, I don't know, do you tell your students anything, any piece of advice or anything that you want to kind of close the show on?
So I do. I tell them that this trade is hard. Not to give up, not to be hard on themselves at all. That they're going to make mistakes. Never stop learning. Never be afraid to ask for help because there's usually somebody
I
that
I
has done it
struggled with
longer.
that so much when I started.
Yeah, it's a struggle. Even I did. We all do it. We all want to do what we do and we want to be good at it. But it takes time to build up that confidence.
Hmm.
And the only way to do that is, through reaching out to other people for help. So that's one thing I drill into them is this trade is always changing. Everything is always different than it was yesterday. We're getting ready to change refrigerants next year. Everything's going to be
Yeah.
nuts. Do not be afraid to ask for help. And, you never stop learning. If you can take classes all the way through your career, I highly recommend it.
I think just talking with so many people now, that's always one thing that everybody has in common that is like really successful or confident now is after, like when I started or when they were in school, like after work, they would always look up manuals or things that they needed to learn to be better. And I was always like that too. Like I obsessed with being better because I hated being new and not knowing anything. I was like, I'm gonna figure this out. So after
Yeah.
work, any manual, like manuals are the easiest thing. Read the manuals of anything that you're working on
Hmm.
or that's in your field. And I mean, that's kind of the best or easiest thing you can look up.
Yeah, I've started, and I direct them, a lot of them, to Brian Orr HVAC school
Oh
online,
yeah.
and then AC Service Tech. We use a lot of their material in the classroom, so they get familiar with them. And a lot of them say that they just stay up watching their videos, and so I'm like, just don't stop learning, and don't be afraid to ask for help because I think that's the biggest thing out there. When you're out there by yourself at somebody's house and you're struggling, like don't struggle by yourself. Like call somebody. And I always give them my number, my students anyway, too. I'm like, I'm here if you
Just
don't want to call anybody else.
yeah, just a phone call and help you get through your call because I mean everybody struggles. That's just the way it is. And yeah, Brian Orr, HVAC School, Craig Migliaccio with AC Service Tech. I love those channels, and I still watch them. I still watch a lot of their stuff
Yep.
because they're so good at breaking down everything. So those are good resources.
Because when you're new, like you said, you can hear all these things and you don't understand any of it when you're new. It's just a
Mm-mm.
bunch of words. Even one of my students said to me the other day, he's like, when I first started, I didn't think I'd understand any of this. He's like, but now when you talk, I actually understand what you're saying, and I'm like, well, that's a good thing. And it's like you gotta keep hearing it.
That's awesome. Like I said, thanks again for stopping in. I know you've had a busy day today, and I'll let you get back to that roof job that you guys are working on.
Yep, I'm about to go jump up there and help fix these couple little spots. Shouldn't be too bad.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you for taking the time, and thanks again.
All right, thank you. Have a good one. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, everybody watching and listening, I appreciate you all for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.